Hello, hi, my name's Eddie Obeng, and I'm delighted to be here with you at the BE Penang wonderful 5th edition of our conference together. And the plan is we're going to figure out how to be inevitable. So I sent out an earlier video. Why me? Why am I your keynote? Many reasons. One of the reasons is that I spent a lot of my life thinking about this future world. And I wrote a book called New Rules for the New World about 25 years ago. Nobody knew what I was talking about, but now it's selling again. Would you believe it? But also I've done a fair amount of work in the hospitality industry and events industry. I've done lots of conferences. So I hope I've seen you before. I hope you've seen me before. And I promise not to use the same jokes again. So the plan we're going to go through is I want to try and use this keynote to help you to have energy, to be bold, and really to seize this strange time and shape it in such a way that it's of value to you. So that's what I'm hoping to do. As I go through it, I'm going to sort of jump backwards and forwards. I'm going to make it a bit like an MTV video. So I'll talk to screen a bit, then I'll share my screen, then I'll do some drawing, and just to make it a little bit more interesting for you. Because one of the things we know about really building a business which is going to be sustainable and profitable is differentiation is important. So if I did like a normal webinar, hello, my name's Eddie, blah, 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 it's like 50 billion different webinars. So there's no advantage. But when we talk about your businesses, revitalizing your businesses, rethinking them, we're going to have to look for areas of differentiation. And the problem with differentiation is the sheer worry and embarrassment because you're doing something different from everyone else. So I want to take us through that journey, if that's okay with you. So I guess the best place to start, where should I start? I know I'll start. I'll start with what was happening almost before COVID, and then we can sort of work our way from there to try and understand what might be different. So if I was to start pre-COVID, I'm going to scribble on this board if it's okay with you. I'm assuming everyone here has some experience in business, and therefore you're more than about 30 years old. Is that fair as an assumption? So I'm going to assume that you can remember back, I don't know, 20, 30 years. So let me just start by drawing along here a timeline. It's gone behind me. I'll probably have to move back a bit. Oh, there you go. Okay, a timeline like that. And let me put 30 years in here, and let me make this one now, and let me make this part the past. Okay, so that's the past, that's now. If I was to ask you, tell me what's been happening in your life over the 30 years in terms of customer expectations, the demands when they come for your services, how about the pace of change, the level of competition in your market, the number of people on the planet, the volatility of your market and things like currencies and transfers. Everybody says the same thing. They say, Eddie, don't you know anything? The world just goes faster and faster and up and up and up. But that, guys, is not the interesting part. The interesting part is this. How fast have we been changing and learning over the period? Now, I don't know about you, but for me, what I see is most organizations, although the world is changing really fast over here, they probably started off just above the curve. They used to plan for a year, used to have strategies. In other words, once upon a time, we could learn much faster when the world was changing. But if you look and see around you, you'll notice that for most of us, our ability to learn and change has stayed pretty flat. So even without COVID, and this is why I wrote my book, even without COVID, there's a high probability that you've spent a lot of your time not in a world where you can learn faster than the world is changing, but a world which can give you lots of surprises. Is that true? And the way I know this is because when I speak to people, I'm going to switch and just do a little bit of my MTV piece now. So when I speak to people, one of the things which I discover is that they will often nod when I show them this video. I'm going to go into one of my virtual rooms, so don't get too shocked if I do that. This is the classroom I would be using for teaching. If you're coming to the deep dive, I'll show you where we're going to meet for that as well. So just an aside. This is the room I'm presenting in this very second. So this is my actual room, which I'm showing you here, okay? Now, This is the virtual version of the room. And as you can see, the room is empty, just like a lot of us. When we've relied on bringing people together in order to deliver services, food, experiences, events, the world has gone and changed around us. So what we have here is we effectively have instead a virtual classroom. So I'm in it as an avatar. I'm just moving around it as an avatar. I just want to tell you how I know. Oh, haha, that's good. There you go. I forgotten I was going to do that. Ta-da! Okay. So let's have a look at the world around us. Tell me if you recognize any of the things I'm going to say to you as a pre-COVID experience. So I'm going to show you this diagram. It starts here where it says I have a high workload. Obviously not you guys, just enjoying yourself on this wonderful conference. So I don't have time to plan or to do or to be creative. And the net result of that is that I don't realize how much work I'm committed to, and I've only done half. So because of that, what happens is that I keep saying yes more than is realistic to the left, which then pushes my workload even higher. And with my higher workload, what I then discover is that sometimes I come close to deadlines other people think are important. And because the other people are worried about it, guess what? They come, let me just hide that for a second. They come and they interrupt me. So I spend a lot of my time restarting half-done jobs down here, which means that I'm interrupted. And because I'm spending time redoing the work, I have a even bigger workload. Give me a second. And the net result of that is that people now know that I'm a little bit disorganized up here, and they can interrupt me and get away with it. So it goes round and round and round. Have you seen this happening to your colleagues, even before COVID? Absolutely. So what we know is even before COVID, people were working very hard. They had stretching and challenging targets. Things were going south anyway, and that was life. They were trying to do things the way they always had, and many of the things they did had little effect. So that's how I know that the world was already changed, because I drew this diagram before I met you. And you can see part of your life before COVID in there. And then we got hit by COVID. So the world is accelerating. It was making us more stressed and giving us more things to do. And then we got hit by COVID. The story I always like to tell when I start to explain about COVID is, let's see if I can find it, my father-in-law's favorite image, this one here. This is an important image because, can you see what color it is? You can see this is red, can't you? Okay, do you think it really is red? You know, we see using these things called photons, which are little bits of light. This is a picture from what's known as the scanning electron microscope. Electrons are smaller than photons. Therefore, viruses have no color. But when you see it in the newspaper, it's always bright red. Do you know why? Because if you were given the job of trying to persuade 7.2 billion people to take the virus seriously, would you choose a virus which is yellow and nice, or a virus which is green and happy and relaxed, or one which is red, which says, hey, watch out? So basically, the way they got our attention was quite dramatic, and it frightened everybody. And through that fear, what it meant was that we got a little bit stuck as human beings. If I come off the share, this is what I'm going to try and explain. We were already in a world which was happily changing and surprising us. That was not new. And then we got hit by this red thing. And what happens is, if you're a human being, you have a huge problem when new things happen. You see, if you were given the choice of ancestors who survived, or ancestors who were, could see reality and were very creative and adventurous, which one would you choose? I would choose ones who survived. Why? Because the others might not have made it. So what happens is, over millions, billions of years, given the choice between two different situations, yin and yang, in other words, the known world, where we know exactly what's going to happen and we can control that, and the unknown chaotic world, anybody who has any sense, who had decent ancestors, liked to be in the known space. When you wander into the unknown space, you better well have a good mechanism to get you back safe. And the mechanism is this. The mechanism is this. In your neck, about here, there's a piece of software has just one job. It literally day and night checks to see whether anything new has happened close to you. It's called the amygdala. It says everything the same. Yep, everything's the same. Relax. Then suddenly it notices a change. I don't know, COVID, we got locked down, whatever it is. Okay, so that software then does 3 important jobs very fast. I'm sorry, it looks a bit like Homer Simpson. I'll give him an eye, okay? The first most important thing it does is it goes, oh my goodness, something new has happened close to me and it's changed. Can I run from it? Problem with human beings is millions of years of evolution, we run quite fast. Usain Bolt runs at 26 miles an hour. But a rabbit without any exercise, no press ups, 32 miles an hour. So if something close to you changes, it's unknown, it's really dangerous. You're going to get eaten. So it does 3 important jobs. Job number 1 is it takes your modern logical brain and it switches it off. Why does it switch your modern logical brain off? Because whatever you do, thinking is going to be too slow. Then the next thing it does is it makes you really scared. It fills you with fear. Why is that? Because when you're afraid, you are literally in the moment. You don't go, I've got a conference call. Nobody does that. You literally panic immediately and go, okay? That's really useful because that's likely to make you survive, okay? And your body fills you full of adrenaline and you fight or you flee or whatever it is. And if you're not eaten, then slowly the adrenaline level comes down, the fear level comes down, and then eventually your brain switches on and says, hey, what we should do is, and this would have happened to you before COVID. You go to a meeting, a customer, a client suggests something you were not expecting. You want to talk, but you can't think what to say. Your stomach is very tight. Did you have that experience? And so you say something, rubbish comes out of your mind, out of your mouth, because your mind is off. Then you go home, you have a beer, you have a shower, you go, damn, what I should have said to them was. Have you had that experience? That's this. This is deep in our psyche, and it's basically designed as a way to allow you to respond to fear and chaos. Why am I telling you this? Because the COVID experience, the long lockdown, for most of us, our brains are probably still partly switched off. We're probably still partly being fueled by fear. Why is that a challenge? Because when the fear is on, you can't think. So the idea of being bold, whoa, when you're scared, really difficult. The idea of coming up with new business models, whoa, how is that possible when you can barely think for yourself? What I'm going to do with this presentation is I'm going to show you how to manage that fear, how to understand it, how to build really good new business models, and how to put those into practice with your teams. So that's my plan. Are you happy with that? You're supposed to nod. Okay, let's go. First thing about the fear, we'll come all the way back to this. Feeling frightened is perfectly natural, but there are things which you can do which help you move past the fear. You will have noticed that if you manage to laugh, you always instantly forget your fear. You will have noticed that, for example, if you exercise, your fear level comes down. You'll notice that if you walk energetically, your fear level comes down. So there are some very simple mechanical things. We'll come back to that. But the really key thing is to realize that the fear is not going to go away until after you have dealt with it. People always feel nervous and scared until they've done something. Now, what's happened to us at the same time, and this is a massive challenge for us, is when we got scared, we just froze like rabbits. So you saw my virtual classroom. I built that 10 years ago. I've been working in that way for a long time. I teach at a business school. So when the lockdown happened, I phoned up all the deans and professors I knew, and I said, look, you can't run your businesses. Come and use the virtual space, okay? I can help you to use it, and then you can at least get some revenue. What do you think they said? So I phoned them. I said, hey, look, I can help you out. Your business is going to die otherwise. I'll help you out. I know you've been doing face-to-face classroom stuff. That's where your skills are, but I can help you out. What do you think they said? Did they say, oh, yes, please, Eddie, come help it? No, the exact opposite. They said to me, oh, we'll be fine. We've started to experiment with Zoom and things. And I've been in this 10 years. I know you can't do a complicated course on Zoom. And then they said, and anyway, it'll all be back to normal by the end of the year. You see, when you're frightened, it's very difficult to move forward. And I'll explain why. Because when we were put into this situation, it required us to build a completely new set of skills in order to survive. The analogy I sometimes use is, have you heard of butterflies? Yeah, okay. So you know about caterpillars, and I'll try and draw a caterpillar. So that's my best attempt at the caterpillar. I'll make him like that. I'll give him a head like that with some spiny things and lots of legs. You can see lots of legs. That's my caterpillar over there, okay? And if you heard of butterflies, so I'll put a butterfly a little bit above him, okay? That's my butterfly. I'll make the butterfly a bit beautiful. I'll put some yellow dots on him. I'll put some red around the yellow, maybe a bit of green. It's a lovely butterfly, okay? And I'll give him some antenna. There you go. Caterpillar, my butterfly. When you're in a situation which is deeply chaotic, when you're in a situation where you've moved out of the known world into the unknown world, if you can step back, if you can go back and use your original skills, that's what your amygdala is telling you to do. It's saying, get out of here, get back to what you know. But what if you're stuck in the chaotic environment? What if you can't go back? That's where we find ourselves with COVID. First thing is, you long to go back. You're hoping to go back, but you can't. The thing we know is, you're a great caterpillar. But the question is a butterfly just the same as a caterpillar with some wings stuck on it? No, of course not. Caterpillars are good at walking, eating leaves. That's what they do every day. So their day-to-day life, they commute, they eat leaves. That's what they do. That's their skill set. That's their business model. That's everything about them. Butterflies, they fly around. They look nice. They eat with a long proboscis. Totally different skill set, business model, proposition, customer base, everything. How does a caterpillar become a butterfly? Does it wake up one day and go, I'm going to become a butterfly? No, in reality, the caterpillar can't even imagine flying. What happens is the caterpillar eats lots of food to keep going as well as it can, and then it starts to build extra things. It starts to build its wings, it starts to build its legs, it starts to build the antennae. So it starts to make a cocoon to make it safe for it to do new things. Then it emerges, and then it's a butterfly. What I'm trying to explain is the world had already changed. We just didn't realize it. And that's why my book came from. And I talked to people forever about, change and digital and working globally. And they were, yeah, like the business school professors. Once COVID hit, everybody discovered that, oh, we can have conversations on the phone. We don't have to do travel. A good thing, a bad thing, who knows? But the thing we need to understand is we needed to reinvent why they should travel. We needed to reinvent why they got together. Because what they discovered was the technology could help them with some of it, not all of it. So first thing to realize is the world had already changed before COVID. We all needed to be thinking about new ways of working. There were pressures from everywhere about climate change and all these things. We all needed to think butterfly, profitable butterfly. COVID hit us so hard, it turned our brains off, and that's made it extra difficult. So if it's hit you hard, you got no revenue, nobody coming, no business events, and you're trying to think, and your brain is off, then it's really hard. Another thing which I did also, and you may have seen it on my LinkedIn, was I actually wrote to, because I speak for many speaker agencies, and there was a lot of conversation about what's happening in the events industry. So I spent at least a week on LinkedIn saying, look, I've got a virtual environment. You can come and have conferences there. And exactly the same thing happened. They said to me, don't worry, we'll do it at the end of the year. So this isn't an unusual thing. This is a human thing. The context is we have to transform. We don't know what the butterfly looks like. We've got to figure out how to make serious money. We've got to figure out how to take our teams with us. We've got to figure out how to rebuild the economy. We've got to figure out how to make sure that we can actually have something which is sustainable. That's my chapter 1. I hope you're happy with that, because now we start to look at some of the challenges we face when we're not bold and push through. And I want to start with a video. Let's see if I can share this video with you. I spoke at a conference, I think it was could have been Helsinki, somewhere like that. And I met this wonderful lady who's the head of tourism in the Faroe Islands. So almost, if you're in Penang, go straight through the world and almost exactly opposite from you. That's where the Faroe Islands are, small little islands, okay? And when COVID hit, they tried to come up with ideas, and they came up with this idea, and I'll share it with you because I think it's funny.
Now that we don't have any tourists in the Faroe Islands, we have a lot of extra time on our hands. So we thought that we would give those of you who couldn't visit as planned and everyone else a chance to visit the Faroe Islands through us. We will be fitted with a camera and give everyone access to control us using their mobile phone. When you press forward, we move forward. When you press left, we turn left. And when you press jump, well, we jump. Each trip will begin in a new location. And as a virtual tourist, you can ride, sail, and even control a helicopter. So you can literally sit at home and control a helicopter in the Faroe Islands. Where we end up is up to you, as long as you keep us out of harm's way. You can take a free virtual trip at visitfaroeislands.com or follow our adventures on Facebook and Instagram Live. In the meantime, we look forward to welcoming you back to the Faroe Islands in real life. Now that we don't have any tourists,
so let me just stop the share here.
We have a lot of extra time
I should have
on
killed
our
the
hands.
sound as well.
So we thought that we would give those of you.
Let's go. So did you hear the last sentence? That last sentence is really interesting because I saw that they attracted 750,000 virtual visitors in, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks, because everybody was bored, okay? 750,000. That's like, I don't know, 10 times the number they get in 2 years. A huge number. All right. But she finished by saying, and we look forward to welcoming you after the crisis. I then immediately contacted her and I said, you've got something amazing here. Why don't you monetize it and turn it into a revenue stream? And just like the professors of the business school, she told me that this was coming back. You see, there's a real human need to go back to the safety of what we know. If you'd asked me, take this as a business opportunity, I try something like that with the virtual thing. I would be thinking, okay, how can I monetize this? Can we charge? How about the conversation between the person who's being driven and the person who is doing the driving? Can we make a relationship? Because maybe in 2 years' time, they can travel and come and the guide can talk to them and show them for real. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking to myself, can we access people who would never come to Penang as tourists and the local guides who are not doing anything because it's lockdown, we can't do anything, could be guiding them, showing them the local, where the waterfall is, how to prepare a local meal, and so on. There's so much interesting in your world, which I don't know. And I could get to know them. I could get to know their names. Maybe they're called, I don't know, Mewi, for example. I don't know. And then we get to talk. And then I say to my friends, hey, this is my guide, Mewi, showing me around Penang. Revenue stream. And then I start to think to myself, well, what else could you do selling that? Could you sell products? Could something be mailed to you, which is a local product which comes to you, I don't know, a piece of carving or some dried food? Immediately, we start to see revenue opportunities if we're not trying to get back to normal. The headache we have is that in our minds, there are 5 possible futures, and most of us just love one. One is, the vaccine is out. Let's go back to the old. Let's go back to how it was. That might happen. Who knows? We don't know. The virus might even just disappear. You remember SARS and MERS and even Ebola just disappeared. We didn't all get injected and vaccinated for Ebola. It was so deadly, and then it disappeared. Remember? So we could go back to the norm. My guess is we're not going to go back to the norm because so much has changed. So what's also possible is that we actually make a sort of a partial change where we go, well, we're not going back to the norm because we still don't want to have like 30 people in the room. We have 10 people in the room. Are you thinking? So there's that sort of partial return. That's really dangerous because it won't fit your previous business model. Your previous business models were probably based around certain amounts of travel, certain amount of event activity, food, and so on. When you reduce the numbers, you go below break even. So although it looks attractive and people want that in their hearts, probably not going to work. And then you'll find some people, they really want to change, but lockdown has wiped them out. So they're really just hoping no more change, no more change, no more change. The way I describe it is I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were saying how, oh, we've now learned how to use Zoom and Teams, so we don't need anything else. See, what's happened is they've started to adapt. The caterpillar is still a caterpillar. It's put little caterpillar shoes on its feet. It's not a butterfly, but they're not interested in flying anymore. And I think a lot of businesses will end up in that situation. It's not enough to actually survive into the future, but you cannot face the thought of any more change. Then we move on to the ones who are trying to reinvent themselves, really just looking for new customers, new things to do. But my guess is where the future will be is it'll be a bit of the past, a bit of remote, and a bit of something else. So if you ask me about, the Faroe Islands, we're going to the Faroe Islands for an event, I would go, great. So you have the event in maybe on the Faroe Islands old rooms. Probably not so many people would come because even if they can travel, they won't necessarily travel. But then there are other revenue streams because you don't just have to make money from the people in the room. How do you make money from the people around the rest of the world? How do you get them interested? Because you can now mix the digital and the real, and you can give people different experiences, and therefore you can get the travel, you can get the, but if you're running say a hotel, by now you're probably knocking down the walls between the rooms to make the rooms extra big so that they're luxury rooms, because the people who travel will really want to travel and they'll probably pay more. So all these little changes to your business model are all there. We have to figure out how do we deal with them? What do we do about them? What will work? That's a long story. If I was to summarize it, I would say the only way we manage to move forward is to stop missing the past. Biologically, when you lose something important to you, it takes 18 months before you stop mourning it and wanting it back. So it's very difficult. But the only way you can do it is to dream of the future, to make the future look better than the past, to believe, and this is a quote I use a lot, and I recommend you say this every morning to yourself as part of overcoming the fear, but also part of moving forward. The quote is, you wake up and you say to yourself, the best is yet to come. Because you're trying to drive yourself forward into that future. So what I've been doing with people is I've been saying to them, let me just share my screen again. I've been saying to them, okay, guys, look, let's sit around, or let's as leaders try and think about this. And let's, I'm going back into one of my classrooms just so you know where we are. And let's spend some time thinking about what's changed in our world. And the reason I'm talking lots is because I've lost what I was going to show you, but you haven't noticed, I know that. So I won't draw attention to it. There we go. Okay, so this is a chart I use. At the end of the talk, I'll give you a web link, which will have lots of these links in there. But I literally sit and I say to myself, look, reality, we've been successful by doing what in the old world? Attracting a lot of people to our events. I mean, what was an event about? It was a gathering. It was bringing people together. It was about the spirit, okay? So what did we do? We brought them together. We gave them good food. We gave them a good atmosphere. We created a place where they could walk past each other and bump into each other and talk, for example. And so I asked myself, if we're going to be successful and customers are going to buy from us, what will we need to do? And we start to look at it. And often Some of the things are the same, like the essence of joy when humans meet each other. So how do we create that essence of joy? But at the same time, there are also new things because we're now anticipating new customers. Not everybody has to be the same as the previous customers. So who else could we run events for? Maybe we go from corporate events to family events. I don't know what the margins are going to look like, but that's the way we need to think about it. So I use this very, very simple idea of what worked in the old world versus what worked in the new world. Choose your partner, maybe 2 or 3 of you, maximum. Spend some time just doing that. It will free your mind. And as you list more things about the things you need to do to be successful in the future, simply that process of inventing the idea will make you happier about progressing. So what we're now after is ideas of how we're going to survive in the new environment. And I already highlighted for you the Faroe Islands idea. The rule is very simple. Find something, an idea. I've been throwing ideas at you, integrated 4-dimensional events where some people are in the room, some people are out of the room, the poles go between the two, the people in the room are getting something different. For example, on the CEO deep dive, I'm going to be mixing Cube, which is avatar-based, which is where I am on this screen, with Zoom. So some people will be able to interact and write and talk, and others will be watching. 2 different experiences, but I can span a different group of people. So, so the rules which I use when I'm trying to help people to rebuild their worlds are: step number 1, look for ideas, any idea, anything. Oh, what we could do is we could give them a guarantee that if they have a good time on this session, X, Y, Z. I don't know why I've gone out of focus. Maybe I'm moving too fast. Okay, so maybe that's what we do. But we go from, let's done it again. Hello. There we go. We go from an idea, and then we sit around and we say, what would the customer want, which would make this idea really brilliant? So pretend to be the customer, try to figure out what you could do to make the idea really brilliant, the best idea in the world. And then we have to put it into a business case. I want to share with you a conversation I had about a month ago with people from a university. So this is a slightly different conversation I'm having. Basically, because I have a virtual world, I finally got through to universities, not business schools. They wouldn't talk to me. They told me everything will be great soon. And so I was talking to this university who contacted me, and I said, tell me a little bit about what your challenges are. And they said, oh, Eddie, you know, we've been now for about 6 months, and what we've discovered is that we do not have a way to be sure that the students are engaged when we're working with them virtually. I said, that's really terrible. And we were on Cube. So I said to them, write a sticky note to tell me what will happen if you cannot fix this quickly. So I'm going to reveal the things they said. Each color is a different person. One person said the college would lose income. Somebody says the college will lose prestige. Other one says lecturers will be demoralized. Another one said we'll have to work super hard. They said some students might lose well-being. The students will drop out. They might fail their exams, and some of them won't get through their course material. So basically what they're saying is we have a gap between where we are and where we'd like to be. If we don't fix it, students won't get through their work, maybe fail their exams, maybe drop out. They'll be mentally challenged. Tutors will have to work out. They'll be demoralized. We'll lose money and prestige. I said, that's terrible. I said, okay, so tell me what happens if you could fix it. They said, oh, well, all sorts of things could happen. And I'll just spread them out so that you can see, and then I'll read them for you. They said, what might happen is that because we're now virtual and we can see what's going on, we might actually discover students can remember better. We might have proof they're doing things. They'll learn asynchronously, not just in the classroom. We'll see what their workload is. It'll be less expensive than on a physical campus. We'll be able to sell to people in different countries. Maybe we could actually maintain results, increase income, and discover it's actually better. So they talk themselves into this, and I would recommend you do this. Whatever idea you come up with, make it a gap, difference between where you are and where you'd like to be, and then think about what happens if you do nothing and what happens if you fixed it. Then I said to them, well, why haven't you done it yet? And they said, well, many of the decision owners Just want to wait and see how it comes, okay? So that's what the decision owners wanted to do. They wanted to wait. We thought we had control of the students. We discovered we don't. We don't have a business case. We don't know how to communicate, et cetera, and so on. So what they had done very quickly is they had made a business case. In that business case, they have worked out all the things which they need to do in order to be successful here. And fortunately for me, one of them was they wanted to understand Q. So that's great. So I then said to them, okay, let's put some money. If these bad things on the left happen, how much money is it? And they said, oh, we'll probably lose 5 million. I said, 5 million? They said, yeah, 5 million is a lot of money. I said, what happens if we do the good things? They said, we'll probably get, because revenue is so rubbish at the moment, we'll probably still lose money, but we might just lose 2 million. I'm just getting at it. Okay, so what you suddenly discover is the value at stake. And once you start to understand that, you can then see whether the business case works. The reason I'm showing you this is because it allows you to go quickly through a business case without all the detail of the spreadsheet and so on, but also it means you can test many ideas at once. So I'm going to stop there. If I've done a good job in this second chapter, you can see that the ideas have to be created, they have to be found, they have to be stolen, they have to be copied. You can see that whatever was your business model before, we're going to have to find a different way of trying to deal with that, because otherwise we're not going to be able to deliver a new butterfly. And if I've done a really good job, you could also see very, very clearly that it's not difficult. You can do it, but it is very frightening. Chapter 3, how do you get other people to come with you? At the start, I explained that they'd used red as a way of persuading us to move. By far, the best, most powerful thing to get people to change is fear, but it has a downside. Switches off your brain, and the moment the fear goes away, people go back to doing what they were doing before. So it's really a bit of a challenge, but you can get people to change, your team, your colleagues, by doing something slightly different, which will not just get them to change, but to buy in and not be afraid and be bold. Have you noticed when you really wake up in the night or whatever and you've had a fantastic idea, have you noticed how it possesses you? You can't think about anything else. You want to bring it to life. You want to do all sorts of, have you had that experience? People will sometimes talk about an idea as your baby. Have you heard that before? Okay. So I explained earlier that the software in your neck, when a change comes along, it frightens you, like a saber-toothed tiger coming out of the bushes. Suddenly, oh my goodness, I've moved from the known world to the unknown, etc. So we know that fear and so on comes from the unknown. But why are you so possessed by your own ideas? It's another evolution thing. Basically, for many millions of years, we never had enough to eat. Your brain burns a lot of energy. So the way your body works is it notices when your brain is thinking and it wants your brain to turn it into more food. That's basically what's going on. So when you have an idea, whether you like it or not, the bit in the brain slightly higher up goes brain, you're thinking, I can see that. Fall in love with your idea. That's why you love all your ideas. Have you noticed how brilliant they are to you? Yeah, you love them. And turn it into more food. Everybody has the software in their brains. So that will beat the fear, because love beats fear. Very simple. This will have happened to you. So you get the contrast. You have an idea, you go to your team or your other half, you say, hey, why don't we just do X, Y, Z? It's your idea, you're in love with it. You tell the other person. They have not thought about it. So what happens in their heads? They just see change and chaos coming at them. So what happens? They go, oh, if it's your team, they say, oh, you show them the baby. You say, look at my beautiful baby. They go, oh, the baby's ugly. You say, no, it's not an ugly baby. It's a beautiful baby. You start to argue with them. It's a beautiful baby. No, it's ugly, etc. You have this discussion. And they always leave thinking your baby's still ugly. What happens is one person might stay behind and they'll say, I had a similar idea myself. Can we work on it? In other words, they're in love with their own ideas. The way you drive people and persuade them through fear is you get them to invent something together. That's why I suggested they evolve, dominate, and die. What worked in the old world, what works in the new world. Because I'm trying to get people to invent the future. That's why I suggested the gap leap. If we don't do it, what happens? If we do it, look, it's good. Because always you're trying to get people to invent things. The method I use is very simple. You bring the situation. Then you give people some information, then you start asking them questions to try to get them to create their ideas. It's called issue, data, question, build, solution together. So that's what I use. And then on top of that, things I mentioned earlier, very simple: fear, activity, talking to yourself, persuading yourself the future will get better, the best is yet to come. I use affirmations a lot. So what that is basically, to be bold, you must make sure that you write down where you're going. Maybe 15 times a day, that's what I do, which is basically, I'm going to create a new model for making sure the hospitality industry works. I'm going to create, and you just repeat that to yourself, because what you're trying to do is get that horrible fear bit and let your brain take over. Affirmations work really well. If you're working with a partner, then challenge each other. Each morning say, it's going to be better, it's going to be better, it's going to be, because what you're trying to do is energize each other to do it. But the real rule is, when you come up with an idea, don't let the fear put you off it. Because caterpillars are afraid of heights. Of course not. But caterpillars could be afraid of heights. This new transformation you want, so that you can be bold, you can really drive through the change. You're talking about things like collaboration, which means you have to think together. You're talking about things like making sure you're digital. I've already shared with you how I work in the digital world. All these things require you to do things you're not familiar with. They're not caterpillar skills. So that means they are extra frightening on top of the fear of business and COVID. The rule is, go where the fear is. If you are doing something new and it's making you extra scared, you need to do it more, because that's how you turn into the butterfly. So to summarize, I hope I've done a good job of trying to help you to realize the world was already a bit strange. We were already thinking about how to make the changes. You were already leading some of the changes. Then we got extra change, scared us. Everyone's hoping to go back. They love the vaccine. They think it will take them back. I'm not sure the past is still there to go back to. I think the future is going to be some sort of combination. I call it the meld of remote, local, travel, not travel, different forms of activity, selling your event, not necessarily locally, but probably globally to get the revenue. It's something like that, those types of combinations. And for yourself and your team, you really need to work quite hard on these little tricks which allow you to overcome the residual fear and move forward. I'll leave you with my final story. It's not really a joke. I wish it was a joke because it would be funny. But one of the things I've watched people do is try to use their existing skills and issues and challenges to resolve that caterpillar to butterfly problem. And there's a story about a chap who comes across a drunk, and the drunk is at night under a lamppost. And the lamppost is maybe giving, I don't know, 10 feet of light. And the drunk is sort of standing there. This chap comes and says, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I've dropped my keys." Okay? So the guy says, "You dropped your keys." And he looks around, and because it's only 10 feet of light, you can see there are no keys there. So he says, "You've dropped your keys. What are you doing?" He says, "I'm looking for them." And then the drunk is looking. There's obviously no keys there. So the guy says, "Look, there's obviously no keys here. Why are you looking for your keys here?" He says, "Because that's where the light is. That's what I can see." Okay? So he says, "Well, where did you drop your keys?" He said, "I dropped them over there." Okay? I know it's not a funny joke, but the reality is the way we're going to move forward is by being bold, by being energetic, by really recreating, by trying stuff we've never tried before and having that fear, but driving it through anyway, making sure that we've got a good business case, trying lots of ideas, improving things. And that is what I want to leave you with. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with you. I wish you the very best for the rest of the conference. And some of you I'll see at the deep dive. Thank you very much. Thanks.